Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be diving into the world of secure key exchange. It's a pretty crucial part of how we communicate safely online these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So think about it like this, right?
Right.
You want to send like some sensitive information online, anything from bank details to personal messages or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
You'd want to make sure that only the person you're sending it to can actually read it.
Absolutely. That's where encryption comes in. It's essentially, it's like putting your message in a special box that only the intended recipient can open.
Exactly. It's like having that key. But then, of course, that brings up the question, how do you get the key to them safely in the first place, right?
Right.
How do you make sure that nobody else can kind of, snag it along the way,
Right.
especially in this crazy world of the internet?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's a pretty wild place out there.
Mm.
So let's start with the basics.
Yeah, sure.
One way to do this is using something called symmetric encryption. It's kind of like having, one key that can both lock and unlock the box.
Right.
Super efficient, right?
Yeah.
But the challenge is, well, how do you get that one key to the other person safely?
You could imagine maybe like a physical delivery, almost like a courier with a locked briefcase or something.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. That's what we call out-of-band exchange. It is secure, but as you can imagine, not very practical for the, fast-paced online world that we live in.
Yeah. Definitely not the most practical, especially when we're trying to, send messages back and forth quickly.
Right.
We need something a little faster,
Exactly.
something more automated.
Right.
So that kind of brings us to the idea of what's called in-band key exchange, which basically means it happens within the internet itself.
Yeah.
But that sounds, doesn't that sound kind of risky?
It does.
Like sharing a key over a network where anyone could potentially be listening?
It is. That's why we need clever solutions. And one way we can do this is by using something called asymmetric encryption to securely deliver that symmetric key.
Okay, asymmetric encryption. So that sounds a little bit more complex. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, so think of it as a system where you have two keys.
Hmm.
You have a public key and a private key. You can give your public key to, well, anyone. It's kind of like an open mailbox.
Oh, okay.
Anyone can drop a letter in. But only you have the private key. And that private key is the only key that can open that mailbox and read those letters.
So I could use your public key to encrypt a message. So that's like putting it in your mailbox, and only you with your private key can decrypt it. That's like, opening up your mailbox and reading the message.
Exactly. And in this case, the message is actually our symmetric key. So the sender encrypts it with the recipient's public key,
Okay.
and only the recipient with their private key can decrypt it.
Got it. So I'm starting to see how that would work for securely delivering the key.
Yeah. And this method is actually often used to share something called a session key. These keys are kind of like temporary passwords that are only used for a short period, like for a specific conversation or a transaction.
Okay.
Once that session ends, the key is discarded. So it makes it much harder for anyone to eavesdrop, even if they, somehow manage to intercept it later.
So it's kind of like it's like a self-destructing message.
Exactly, yeah. Like, let's say you're a client trying to access a secure server.
Okay.
You would create a random session key and then encrypt it using the server's public key.
Right.
Send it over, and then the server, using its private key, can then decrypt that.
Okay.
And only the server can do that. So it can use that session key to then understand your requests.
Very clever. So we've got one method down, but I hear there's another way to do this key exchange business. And this one's even more mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Something about algorithms that can like create the same key on both sides, but without actually sending it across the network.
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
It sounds like magic, doesn't it?
Yes, a little bit.
But it all comes down to some brilliant mathematics and, some cleverly designed algorithms. These algorithms exploit the fascinating relationship that exists between public and private keys.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Walk us through it.
Okay. So let's bring back our classic characters, Bob and Alice, wanting to have a secure chat.
Okay.
So Bob combines his private key, which, only he knows.
Right.
He combines that with Alice's public key, which anyone can have.
Okay.
And Alice does the same. She combines her private key with Bob's public key.
So they're both kind of mixing these public and private keys together. How does that lead to them having the same symmetric key?
So here's where the magic happens. Because of the way the math works out, when Bob combines his private key with Alice's public key using this, specific algorithm,
Right.
it produces a unique value.
Okay.
And because of that same mathematical relationship, when Alice combines her private key with Bob's public key, it generates the exact same value.
Hold on. So they both end up with the same key without ever sending it to each other.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
they both solved a puzzle independently, but ended up with the exact same answer.
It is. That's a great way to put it. And it's all thanks to these carefully designed key exchange algorithms. And it's important to remember that these algorithms are specifically just for building the key, not for encrypting the data itself.
Okay, so they're like the foundation for a secure conversation,
Exactly.
making sure both sides have that same secret key to be able to lock and unlock their messages. That's seriously impressive.
It is. It's pretty amazing. And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole world of cryptography out there with researchers constantly developing new and even more secure methods.
So stay tuned, folks.
Yeah.
We'll be back after a short break to delve even deeper into the world of secure key exchange. So we've talked about two methods so far for secure key exchange. We've talked about using asymmetric encryption to deliver that symmetric key, and we've talked about those really kind of wild key exchange algorithms
Right.
where you end up with the same key on both sides without ever actually sending it.
Yeah.
But technology is always evolving.
Yeah.
So I can't help but wonder, what's next for this whole world of secure key exchange?
That's the question that keeps a lot of cryptographers up at night, especially with the kind of looming presence of quantum computing.
Quantum computing, I mean, it's been hailed as this next big revolution in computing,
Yeah.
but how would it actually affect secure key exchange?
Well, quantum computers are fundamentally different from the computers that we use today. They can perform certain types of calculations exponentially faster, including some of the mathematical problems that actually underpin many of our current encryption methods.
Oh, okay. So are you saying that they could, like, crack the code, so to speak, of our current methods of secure key exchange?
Potentially, yeah. A lot of the algorithms that we use today, for example, RSA, relies on the difficulty of factoring large numbers, which is incredibly time-consuming for, classical computers.
Right.
But a powerful enough quantum computer could potentially factor those numbers much, much faster, which would make RSA vulnerable.
Okay, so that sounds kind of alarming. Are we, like, heading for a cryptographic crisis here?
Not necessarily. The good news is that cryptography is always evolving as well. So researchers are already developing new encryption algorithms that are specifically designed to be resistant to attacks from quantum computers. And this field is called post-quantum cryptography.
Post-quantum cryptography. So it's like this race against time to, like, develop new, stronger encryption methods before quantum computers get powerful enough to break the ones that we have.
Exactly. And it's not just about quantum computing. There's
Yeah.
always a chance that new vulnerabilities could be discovered in existing algorithms. So staying ahead of the curve is absolutely crucial.
So what would those new, like, quantum-resistant algorithms look like? I mean, are we talking about, like, completely different approaches to secure key exchange?
Some of them are kind of building upon existing concepts, but with added complexities to make them more resistant to quantum attacks. Others are exploring totally new mathematical approaches, like ones based on lattices or codes.
Lattices and codes. Those sound more like something you learn about in a math class than, like, something having to do with online security.
It really is fascinating how abstract mathematical concepts can have very real-world implications. But the core principle is still the same. We're trying to find a way to establish a shared secret key between two parties without anyone else being able to figure it out, even with those incredibly powerful computers.
That's pretty remarkable when you think about it, like a constant battle of wits between code makers and code breakers.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that there are other possibilities, beyond what we've discussed,
Right.
for secure key exchange. What did you have in mind?
Well, there's a lot of exciting research being done that leverages physical properties for secure key exchange. And one area that I find particularly interesting is quantum key distribution, or QKD.
Quantum key distribution.
Yeah.
So now we're going even deeper into the quantum realm.
Exactly. So QKD uses the principles of quantum mechanics to actually exchange keys in a way that's theoretically unbreakable, even by quantum computers.
Okay, so that sounds truly mind-blowing. How does that even work?
Imagine using single photons. These are tiny, tiny particles of light to actually transmit information. And because of the laws of quantum mechanics, any attempt to measure or observe those photons will inevitably alter their state. So what that means is if an eavesdropper tries to intercept that key, their presence would be immediately detected.
So it's like having this built-in alarm system that goes off if anyone tries to like peek at the key.
Exactly.
That's incredible. But I mean, are these quantum technologies something that we'll like actually see in use anytime soon?
QKD is actually already being used in some niche applications, like securing highly sensitive government communications. But wider adoption is still facing some practical challenges. For example, it requires specialized equipment and infrastructure,
Right.
and the distance over which keys can be securely transmitted is still somewhat limited.
So it sounds like we're still in the early stages,
Hmm.
but the potential is huge.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what other seemingly impossible feats of cryptography we might see in the future.
It's an exciting time to be involved in this field as we rely more and more on interconnected devices and systems. From smart homes to self-driving cars,
Right.
the need for a really robust and secure key exchange is only going to grow.
And with that, we're going to shift gears a bit. And we're going to explore how these principles of secure key exchange actually play out in our everyday digital lives, and what steps we can take to actually protect our own information.
Okay, so we've gone pretty deep into this world of secure key exchange, from the basics of, symmetric and asymmetric encryption, all the way to, the potential impact of quantum computing. But let's bring it back down to earth for a second here.
Right.
With all this talk about, complex algorithms and future technologies, what does all this really mean for, our everyday digital lives?
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in all the technical details, but the reality is that secure key exchange is happening all around us. Like every time you send an email,
Right.
make a purchase online, or even just browse a secure website,
Mm-hmm.
you're relying on this secure key exchange to protect your information.
So it's happening all the time, even if we're not even really aware of it.
Yeah.
That makes it even more important to actually understand the basics, doesn't it? Absolutely. By understanding how it works, we can make smarter choices about protecting our data and kind of contribute to a more secure digital world for everybody.
So what are some practical things that people can do to actually enhance their own online security? Do we all need to become cryptography experts now?
No, you don't need to be a cryptography expert, but a little knowledge goes a long way. First and foremost, be mindful of what information you're sharing online. Think twice before you post any sensitive personal details on social media or, public forums. Once it's out there, it can be really difficult to control how it's used.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's easy to forget that the internet never really forgets, right?
Exactly. And it's not just about protecting yourself from malicious actors. It's also about respecting your own privacy and, being in control of your digital footprint.
Right. It's like being, like a conscious and responsible digital citizen.
Exactly.
So beyond being mindful of what we share, what other steps can we take?
Well, enable two-factor authentication whenever possible. It's a very simple but effective way to add an extra layer of security to your accounts.
Okay.
It means even if somebody gets your password, they still can't access your account without that second factor, which is typically, like a code sent to your phone or email.
Yeah, it's like having a double lock on your door.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot harder for anyone you don't want to get in to actually get in.
Exactly. And speaking of unwanted visitors, make sure that all your devices are protected with, strong antivirus and anti-malware software. Those act kind of like digital bouncers, standing for and blocking any malicious code that could compromise your security.
And just like you wouldn't hire a bouncer that falls asleep on the job.
Yeah,
You got to keep that software updated too, right?
absolutely.
Because those updates usually have important security patches
Right.
that'll address, any newly discovered vulnerabilities.
It's a constant arms race between the security researchers and those who are trying to exploit those vulnerabilities. So staying up to date is crucial.
So we got strong passwords, two-factor authentication, and updated software. Anything else that we should be thinking about to stay safe online?
Yeah, always be wary of phishing scams. These are, those attempts to trick you into revealing your personal information like passwords or credit card numbers by, posing as a legitimate organization or individual.
All right, like those sneaky emails or messages that try to, lure you in with some kind of tempting offer or or like, urgent request. It's amazing how, like, sophisticated those scams have gotten.
They can be very convincing. So always double check the sender's address.
Right.
Look for any red flags like misspellings or grammatical errors, and never, ever click on links from unknown sources. If something just feels off, probably is.
It's like being a digital detective.
Yeah.
Always on the lookout for clues that, something's not quite right.
Yeah, and if you're ever unsure, don't hesitate to reach out to a trusted cybersecurity resource or, an expert for advice.
So it's all about being, proactive and informed, really.
Exactly.
We can't just assume that someone else is taking care of our online security for us. It's really up to each of us to, take those steps to protect ourselves and create that more, secure digital world.
Well said.
So on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into secure key exchange. And I hope you found it as fascinating and insightful as we have.
It's been a pleasure sharing our knowledge with you. And just remember, knowledge is power. And in the digital age, I think that's more true than ever.
Absolutely. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, stay safe out there in that digital world.
Definitely.
Until next time, fellow knowledge seekers.